absolutely mind-blowing.
100%.
And if there's one regret that I have, in my younger life, it's not getting into the real estate market sooner. So, I didn't necessarily have an abundance of money when I was younger, but the sooner I would have got, like, every year that I've been in has just exponentially increased the value of these properties. So you can't say it enough.
I think that's the point right there, though, is like the only time that it makes sense to rent is you physically don't have the money to do so. That's it.
Yeah.
If not, a lot of people are going and moving back home and everything else right now too, but to save their money. With saving up their money for your down payment, another thing that I don't think people realize, which is why it's so good to connect with a mortgage broker, is you can pull money from other sources. If you have RSPs and stuff saved up, I had one of my good buddies who I smacked in the head about renting, did that 2 years ago, and now he's in a home. He contacted this person. He had enough RSPs saved up, and it was like your money to get in the market and get your foot in the door was sitting there this whole time, and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, and the repayment terms on that RRSP, first time home buyers plan, right, I'm not really familiar with it, but I think you need to repay it over 15 years, and it's interest free. It's
generous, yeah.
So
100%.
It's a no fucking brainer, especially if you work for a company that's matching what you put in, or you have some type of a corporate plan. Fuck, like your money is doubling, or your money is increasing by 30%. Because your company is putting in money too. So that's money being used for your down payment that you didn't even put in.
And that money at 10%, because like I said, the King's market going up 10% per year, that money's going to make you more money in a home than it would ever in your RSPs.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned people, young adults, so they'll finish post-secondary education and they'll move back home. How much are you, and this question actually came in, let's see, how are you expecting the market to react to people, young adults, moving back home? So they come out of school, they have a university degree, a college degree, college diploma, whatever, and instead of going and purchasing a home or, going out and getting involved in the market, they're moving home.
Yep.
How do you foresee that affecting the market?
Well, it's definitely making it. It's hard right now for people coming out of university and college with the debt that they essentially have to have going in there, unless they've had their parents or whatever pay for that experience. There's not really a way around it, so it's just making it harder for first time buyers to enter the market. Obviously that affects the lower. Percentage of how do I say it? Like the average sale point or lower end average sale point. Like the average sale point in Kingston right now is 450. Your average first time buyer is buying in the 350-ish range. So it affects that as far as not having as much, demand for that product. Mm-hmm. But there's already, in any market for any product that's a lower end, or like less money, there's always going to be a higher demand for that. So I don't know if there's going to be a huge effect on that, because
don't they call that the buying triangle or something?
Yeah.
The bigger it's bigger at the bottom because more people can access it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So I guess continuing on with the first time home buyers, 3 pieces of advice they want to know from you. What are 3 pieces of advice that Pat would give to first-time home buyers?
Okay. 1, set realistic goals. I think that the most common thing that I see with first-time buyers is they enter the market, they're all excited to buy a home, and they think, and it's not our fault, the first-time home buyer's fault. I think they have that expectation that they're going to buy the same home that their parents live in. Mm-hmm. Well, your parents have saved their whole lives and they're 50 some years old plus, they have more money than you. That's quite, the easiest way to put it. So I think the first thing would be set realistic expectations, because you're not getting your dream home right off the hop. there's a couple other things you can do to make it more so your dream home, like a purchase plus mortgage and etc. But that's a whole other conversation. So that would be my first tip. Definitely. That's probably the most common thing that I see is those expectations. The next thing would be, it's never too early to connect with the professionals in this field. So it's never too early to connect with a realtor, a mortgage broker, because I find a lot of times people are coming out and just being like, okay, I'm ready to buy a house like right now. And their finances aren't in order. So the one horrible thing that happens, or heartbreaking, I should say, is they go out and find a home and they don't have their pre-approval, or they don't have all that stuff lined up. And because of how hot the market is right now, if you don't have all your ducks in a row, everything happens so quickly.
Yeah.
You don't have the time to make, what you need to have happen. So I think connecting with a realtor, sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't want to talk to you because we're still a year out. I'm like, there's no harm in doing that. You know what the best thing to be in any market is? An educated buyer. I've been looking at trucks for a long time. You and I were talking about this before. I know it's a good deal. I'll know the kilometers. I'll know, the price, everything, the year. I know those specs like the back of my hand because I've been watching it and I'm an educated buyer. Yeah. So in part of that is when you get your, in contact with the realtor, if you're a year out, they can do something very simple. And I think some people think it's a lot of work for us, but we have a search engine that we set up. So we get them set up on whatever their, rough criteria is. Yeah. Obviously, if they're a year out, they probably don't have a pre-approval yet.
And I'm set up on this for investment properties through Pat too. So this does work.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And and that's a whole other conversation too, but getting somebody set up on that takes, 20 minutes of my time, and then they can watch it for a year.
Yep.
And then it's good for both of us because when they come back to me in a year, I have an educated buyer. So there's a level of trust that we now have as well because they understand the market. It shows you what properties are selling for and everything. So, and then the other thing, the flip side is with a mortgage broker, if you don't have the money now, like the RSP conversation we were talking about, they'll prepare you for all the stuff that you need within the next 12 months. Number one being, do not finance a vehicle. Do not finance a vehicle. Do not finance a vehicle. Do not finance a vehicle before you buy a home, because I've seen too many too many deals fall apart because of that, because it's all about your debt ratios, right? So there's stuff like that they can prepare you for too, so that you'd be surprised how much more money you can get approved for, and that gets you, in turn gets you one step closer to, like I said, getting mom and dad's home of a quality. So that's two. Number three, I'd have to say hire a buyer's agent. Like I said, it goes right back to my second thing, but have somebody represent your best interest. I think a lot of people think that when they see, this is like honestly the number one misconception in my business, I think, is that you have to call the realtor that's on the sign. You can hire somebody. It costs you $0 to have somebody represent your best interests. So if somebody contacts me, even if you see a property that's, for sale by another agent, I get to come in. My commission is paid by the listing side, and I can represent your best interest
for free.
It's another no-brainer, right? So that's another thing. And I guess a step further than that would be, you don't necessarily need to hire your friend, your family member, whatever that that's in the business. The person that you select should be the person who you think is going to represent your best interest in the negotiation process. My friends and family, you better use me. I know where you live. But you know what I mean, right? So you're hiring us to do a job. Yep. So if you were going to hire somebody to do any kind of service for you, wouldn't you interview a couple people? Wouldn't you get a couple of quotes or ask what their experience is? And I don't think people do enough due diligence in both ends of buying their home and listing their home. Mm-hmm. Interview a few agents, because it shows what different agents have to offer and different agents' experience. If somebody's across the negotiation table every single day, they're going to have a lot better. They're going to be able to look out for your best interest a lot better than somebody who's doing a few deals a year. Yeah.
You're so bang on. And anybody who listens to me or talks to me will, they'll attest to this, but I do not like 98% of real estate agents. I think they're lazy. So they look for easy deals. They don't want to do any work. They just, whatever. So, and I've dealt with probably in, I would say the last 10 years, through buying and people representing other clients and, agents on the other end of deals, I've dealt with hundreds of agents, and I can count on one hand the amount of agents that I would, recommend to anybody. Obviously, Pat and his family are number one on that list, but it's when Pat says interview, absolutely, because they are doing a job and it's not easy. Like people say, oh, you can get your real estate license, out of a Cracker Jack box. That is not the case, because I actually personally took the course, not because I wanted to practice in that field, but because I wanted to educate myself. And it's not as easy as you would think. And I went to university for engineering, so I'm familiar with education. I know, how to study, and it's not easy. But the number one most important thing over the, kind of the education part of the books is experience. So doing it every single day, seeing these different case studies, and understanding how that works. And I think that's what these guys specialize at. So we had somebody ask, a lot of followers are in the Toronto market, and one of them wanted to ask you, because we're seeing an exodus of people leave Toronto, the downtown core. People are moving out there. They expect to, with working from home or with everything going on. So how do you think that's going to affect property values in downtown Toronto? Do you think with these families moving out, there's going to be enough younger people moving in to fill the void? Or do you think that market is going to correct?
In Toronto?
Yes.
So they've already had some corrections. I don't know the Toronto market as obviously as well as I know here. I know they've had a little bit of corrections over the past 2 or 3 years. But being such a big city, and I'm sure they're still seeing some huge growth, I don't know that it's gonna have a huge correction. I do know from the realtors that I've talked to in Toronto, they have the same common trend that kind of you've been talking about, and I think a lot of other big cities are going to start to see with everything that's going on right now, where people are leaving that downtown core and going outside. So I think the downtown condo market will probably see some corrections, if anything. And I know from what I've seen and from who I've talked to from our partners in Toronto, that is the one main thing that's been affected, and days on market's being affected. I don't know how much the values are. I just know that they're sitting for a lot longer, which obviously they go hand in hand. So the value's got to be affected. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So kind of on the same point, with everybody working from home and with, office space, kind of, some people think that it's going to be a thing of the past, and perhaps, these WeWork spaces are going to be the new office of the future. I have my own opinion on what I think this is going to do to commercial office real estate, but what's your take on it?
Well, it's kind of funny that you asked that, because a little bit of background so my dad had started his own company called Nadeau Realty, which he ran for 5 to 10 years. And it was going great. We had a huge office, for anybody who's familiar with us, that was on Sydenham Road. Yeah. And it was a lot of space for us. And the way the things have gone, even long before COVID, because of the technology that's available to everybody right now, we had less and less agents coming into the office. That's got to be consistent with a lot of other businesses. And so what we did, we ended up selling that office and buying like a third of the space in the East End, which is obviously up and coming in Kingston as well now too. And that office now, at a third of the size, is still empty because of the technology that's available. Another step further, we actually hung took the name off the sign, and we've joined with another brokerage called EXP Realty, which is essentially the Netflix to Blockbuster. Everything is done online. It's all through the cloud and everything else. So we are actually the perfect example of a business that is adapting to that trend. And yeah, I think mainstream like the office as you know it today, with hundreds of offices for everybody to come in and work in every day, is going to drastically change. And like you said, I definitely foresee some floating office space coming into play very soon.
And the other thing too is, well, at least from what I've watched in your videos, like with EXP, it opens you up to such a network of people. So like you're talking to guys who are in the States, who are in Toronto, who are in Western Canada, and I'm watching these videos and you're conversing and learning from these guys. Like that's got to be beneficial to someone.
That has been the number one thing that's influenced my business since we switched over. I can't even, like, I feel beyond blessed to be connected with these people. You and I were talking about, before we got on this, about loyalty and relationships and everything else. Well, the way that this brokerage model is set up is that all these guys that are huge top producers are financially aligned for me to be successful, which is like wild. Mm-hmm. But a step further than that, like my favorite thing in the aspect of that business and life and success and everything else, I like the ability to reach up, to sit across the table and do what we're doing right now and be connected with guys like you and guys like these guys. That has been the number one thing that has pushed me to work harder every day and be successful, is because success leaves clues. Mm-hmm. So, and with these guys that I have connections with, like the one guy, I have his cell phone number, could call him right now, 500 deals in 1 year. Like
that's crazy. Like for anybody who really doesn't understand, that is I've never even heard of that.
That's 2 deals a day. Crazy. He's right. I don't even know how you could. I can't imagine he had much of a life, and but that's excessive. So for me to have that contact where I have a problem in my business, and you and I were talking about pain points and stuff like that before this, but I literally have access to people like that. It's almost impossible for me not to be successful, and that's all been made possible through the cloud. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys are in Texas, Ohio, like whatever, all over the Florida, all over the place. And, I have access to them, at the touch of a button, which is pretty amazing.
And it's so cool too. Like you say that, this enables you to be successful. And I agree with that 100%. But, a really important thing that, you don't mention too often is what has been pre-programmed inside of you and the drive that's been lit inside of your stomach from your father. So instead of coddling you and fucking bringing you up like a big fucking pansy, he was hard on you, tough on you, and it made you who you are. And I think that's why guys like that want to work with someone like you or someone like me, because we just listen, we learn, and we execute. And like you had said, you're working 80 hours a week. That's nuts. And obviously your girlfriend, she's cool for understanding that, that's what it takes. And my wife as well, she understands that that's required for the success, but that's not common. People can't do that.
There's one quote that my dad's told me my whole life, and it's stuck with me. I think, about it every day. He said, live how other people are not willing to live now, so that you can live like no one else can later.
Yeah, I fucking love that. It's so fucking true, man.
100%.
It resonates with me and everything that we do. And yeah, I mean, like your dad's he's obviously like he's a legend in this area in real estate. Everybody knows who he is. So, I mean, something that he says, obviously, I've called him for advice in the past, and he's very knowledgeable. So, I mean, it's, that goes without saying. So I want to touch a little bit on, you had said this, and I watched your video the other day, something that you're passionate about, and you've done this a few times yourself, but some people say that this is an archaic or old-fashioned way of using real estate to make money. You have a different opinion on flips. Can you give us some examples on that?
I love it. I think flipping properties is extremely exciting. And it's not the craziest thing to me is it's not rocket science at all. I mean, like, there's obviously a lot of different, ways to make money in real estate. Holding properties, letting them go up in value, and having, your rental income come in is definitely one phenomenal way of doing that. But I like the thrill of flipping a property and seeing a big check at the end of the day. And you're in and out really quickly. With a market that's climbing like Kingston is, it's pretty easy to do. The math is basically, you don't want to be the most expensive property on the street. You find something that's comparable to one of the nicer properties on the street, has similar features and square footage, but doesn't have the same finishes. Kitchens and bathrooms, you walk in, do the math on how much it's going to cost you to, renovate those things. Is that property going to be comparable once you've done those things to the other properties on the street? If yes, and the profit margin is still there, it's a no-brainer. Really important to have a good realtor to help you along the way, because I think the number one mistake people make in flipping properties is spending too much money and thinking that, I'm gonna vault the ceilings, I'm gonna spend thousands and thousands of dollars on lighting and stuff like that. It's all about spending the money in the right places. But I thoroughly enjoy it. If anybody wants to talk to me about it or is interested in trying to do it, it's a lot of fun, and it's exciting. It's a way to make investing. I mean, investing is always fun, but it's a way to make investing really, a thrill.
And you've done this, obviously more than a few times, so you're pretty knowledgeable at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you enjoy flips. So I've done a few flips. I like to buy and hold because my connections in the construction trades aren't as strong as some people's. But it's funny that you said what you were insinuating was, don't make the house out like you're going to live in it. Like, it's not your dream home. So like with the vaulted ceilings or, whatever, you had mentioned, look at the hardware. Like, that's so fucking cheap.
Yep, 100%.
That's not a fucking tens of thousands of dollars of fix.
Yeah, you don't need to go out and, depending on the price range, but you don't need to go out and spend $5 a square foot on tile or whatever you're doing in the flooring. Find something that's relatively nice, that is sellable within the modern trends that's going on. Look up Pinterest if you really have to, if you don't have that creative mind. And honestly, I don't have as much of a creative mind. I just see what sells out there. And that's why it's so important to connect with a realtor too, is because we see what's getting money in these bidding situations that we're having. I'm watching, like, when I go through a property and it's priced similar to something else I've shown that week, but it has a lot of the finishes that I see popularity in. The grays, I make the joke, you could buy a house and paint it all gray and sell it the next day and make a profit. But you see those common trends, and I'll walk through the house and like, somebody's going to go crazy on this. Somebody's going to overbid because, that's consistent with the trends. But that's why it's important. Like I said, it circles right back to somebody who's having a realtor on your side that is in homes every single day and seeing what's going on in the market.
And it's funny that, you were saying that, you need to be experienced on these things and you need to be in them every day. And that really, educates somebody on this stuff. So, as much as you want to support, family or new guys in business or whatever, you really, like, this is a huge investment. And for a lot of people, it's the biggest investment of their life. So, don't take it lightly, but at the same time, don't be afraid to pull the trigger because, it's going to make you money.
100%.
So I want to touch on something quickly about that you mentioned, and it's something I think I know what you're talking about, but it's called a purchase plus mortgage. And elaborate on this, because
sure.
I jotted this down because it's something I want to learn. I don't.
Okay. So this has been huge, especially with the rates that are available right now. I will never not use it personally because I think it just makes sense. The biggest thing that I see it influence though is first time buyers. So when they're coming into a home and they see something that's for sale for say $350, like I said, the average sale price in Kingston is $450, probably even closer to $500 right now. It's hard to find you something that has everything that you need. So let's say we find something and, you know, it needs $20,000 worth of work, and they'll be like, well, we don't have $20,000 to throw away. So what happens is, and I have to do my due diligence here and say, talk to your lenders first, because it's not anything that sounds too good to be true usually is. There's a lot of, you know, things that have to go into this, and every lender does it differently. Some of them need you to get certain quotes. Some of them, you know, there's an appraisal process after, and so on. But the gist of it is, if you're doing improvements to the property that are going to positively impact the value of the property, the bank will give you the money for it. So you go out and you do a new kitchen and it costs you 20 grand. The bank will write you a check for 20 grand and bundle it into your mortgage. So you buy the house for 380, you put 20 into the kitchen, your mortgage is now 400, and you haven't had to pay out of pocket for the kitchen.
Can this be used with a CMHC or Genworth secured mortgage?
Yep.
Or that's crazy.
It's kind of a no-brainer too. I mean, it depends it's different with every lender. One of the catches is a lot of times you have to come up with the cash first, but go take out a line of credit for 30 days and do the work. And it's, you know, you're getting it at 2%, or well, less than 2%, 1.92% was the last mortgage I saw come through. So you're basically finding
1.92.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
4 years was 1.83 was what I heard last. So I don't know how.
That's fucking insane, man.
I don't know that it can get lower. Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Okay. So there's one interesting thing, and this kind of leads back to young people in business. So Pat and I were chatting before, and I had mentioned to him one of the reasons, because I had a preconceived notion. You always have preconceived notions of people. And one thing about me is I want to see fucking people in business work their nuts off. If they're not working their nuts off, then I have zero respect for them, because I know how hard it is. So when you see somebody make something out of nothing, it's so, you know, it makes you so proud of that person, even if you don't know them that well. And something I noticed about Pat, and I just did a video on this, so it's fucking crazy how, you know, coincidental this is. But the first time we were doing a giveaway at the meat shop. So we had Pat was raffling off gift cards from the meat shop in Harrowsmith, and he came in and he was dressed in a suit. Okay, and this is a 25-year-old guy, so he's young, but you know he's educated in real estate, like he's 45. So don't let the age fool you. But he comes in and he's dressed in a suit. And just like I said the other day, just because we're seeing a kind of a flip in trends, and, you know, it's cool to be this Gary V type, and I love Gary V type entrepreneur where, you know, you've got the, you know, the fucking casual clothes and you're going to meetings. And as cool as that may seem, it is so important for us as business people to be respected in certain situations. So if you wear a suit and you're meeting somebody for the first time, that gives them an opinion of you before you even speak. So I think it's very important, as much as, you know, we see moving forward in you know, with business becoming more and more trendy, and being an entrepreneur is more and more trendy. You know, we can't lose sight on the fundamentals of, you know, business, and respect and loyalty to me is huge. So I guess, you know, that's kind of all the questions we want to touch on, but I'm going to throw it to Pat here, and I just want him to give us a little bit of background, fill us in on Nadeau, EXP, and maybe give us his social media handles.
Social media, Instagram's Pat Nadeau _EXP. And then it's just my name. If you look me up on Facebook, look me up on Facebook because Gilmour's is doing a giveaway for Christmas here. We got 12 days of Christmas coming up, but, my background. So, on Nadeau, we've been running my father's been running the team for 5 or 10 years. We have one of the biggest teams in the city. which has its own realm of, awesome benefits for buyers and sellers. But we've developed a system. I talk about, you look at the most successful companies in the world, like the first one that comes to my mind is McDonald's. Mm-hmm. They've dialed down a system so easy that a 16-year-old could run the company, mm-hmm. because everybody is doing what's the highest and best use of their time. Yeah. I heard something the other day. One of my mentors said, you can't scale hero. You can't, if it's a one-man show and one person is doing all the work and you're doing business with that person because it's only about them, it's only going to get you so far, and that person can only produce so much. But what we've done is we have the best people. We have the marketing, team doing what they do best. We have, our videographers and drone people doing what they do best. Our office manager is the best in Kingston, guaranteed. I know that for a fact. She's a rock star. And then the agents, all we do is sell homes. My highest and best use of my time is sitting across the table from a buyer and a seller or negotiating contracts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't need to be doing a lot of the back end stuff, the paperwork, everything else. That gets left to the people who have better attention than I do. Yeah, totally. To detail and everything else. So the people what we've done is leverage everybody's time. With EXP, that's a whole other story, but EXP Realty, we were one of the first brokerages in Canada to make the jump. It was a big jump to make. Obviously, my dad taking his name off the sign that he's worked for so long to build this brand and everything else. We've now become part of this company. It is the fastest growing real estate brokerage in history, for a good reason. It's a whole other presentation that I have to give, but instead of me just being at the bottom, like branch owners and everything else, it's an agent owned company. So I get stocks in the company. I get rewarded for recruiting agents and bringing agents over to the company financially. And there is a ton of training. And like I said, my favorite part about the business is now I can reach up. So mm-hmm. I have access to the rock stars and the people who have been the most successful in North America at doing what I do and follow their road to success. So it's almost like being plugged into all those people. I don't know how we couldn't, offer the most possible. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of the background on us, and the background on me obviously is I'm beyond driven to be successful in this business, and we'll do whatever it takes. So, and
like honestly, I don't give kudos too often because I consider myself somebody who has traded life for success and traded my life for business. So when you find like-minded people, you really gravitate towards them. And Pat is one of those people. So like, I can't say enough about him. And honestly, if just talk to him. Give him, if you're looking to sell your house or buy a house or you just want advice, like it's easy to get a hold of him, and it doesn't mean you need to commit to using him, but trust me, he will blow your fucking mind. So like, seriously guys, give it a shot. And I'm going to finish up with one last quick story. And this involves the Nadeau team. And I believe it was before the affiliation with EXP, but it could be wrong. But the point is, there was a new development subdivision near my house, and it had sat with, I can't remember the brokerage that was listing these properties for people to buy, but it sat, nobody could sell it. Nobody. I think it might have cycled through a few different companies, and nothing sold. It just sat there. It sat and sat and sat. I saw the Pat's name go up on the sign. And this was before I really knew him that well. I knew it because his family comes in the store, and I know them that way, but I didn't really know him that well. The next thing I know, that entire development is sold out. And I'm not talking like fucking 6 months. I'm talking like 6 weeks. It went dormant for fucking 2 years and then sold out in like 6 weeks. And that just goes to show you the difference between, people who are hungry and people who are educated and people who operate in this field, you know, the next level that these guys are on. So, you know, if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, reach out to me, reach out to Pat, you know, and we both have a huge network. So, I mean, if we don't have the answers, we can certainly find it out. But
100%. Thanks for having me, bro.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.